That was we're live in this thing. Did you turn your volume down?
Well, I did already. Like,
Well, I hope you turn your volume down.
Hours ago.
Check 1 2. Wow, we are an absolute disaster here to start the night. I hope you can hear us, because just give us a little yes, we can hear you, yes, we can see you sort of thing, because, well, we had some technical difficulties going on, and we can see us. And hold on, let me check my other electronics here. I really don't like being even 2 minutes late.
Yeah.
I'm just a punctual type person. And when the things are not working, so I turn on all the stuff and all the programs, and all of a sudden I couldn't see myself and I kept getting an error message. That's not good. That's a stressful way to be. So Daniel says, can hear and see you both with a thumbie. I appreciate that. So thank you so much for being here. Sorry we got started a couple minutes late. I'd like to apologize. Usually YouTube is, or at least the live stream stuff, has been pretty good to us. So we switched things up today. You want to see something? I'm not drinking out of a water bottle. I'm drinking out of this coffee mug.
Yeah, and he like totally announced it to me beforehand.
I did. I'm like,
it
I
was
think
a
I'm
big
going to
deal.
switch it up, and I'm going to drink out of a coffee mug. I'm still drinking water, but now it's out of a mug, because I get tired of spilling the water all over myself from the water bottle. And I get tired of like opening it and closing it. So
Yeah.
enough about that. Glad you're here. Thanks for being here. You guys are the coolest people on the face of the earth. Love spending our Wednesday evenings with you. So today, as is the case sometimes, or many times lately, we don't have a topic. It's all about you. It's all about your questions. It's all about how can we make your fish keeping life better. So that's our plan for tonight. Before we get into it too far, some things that we've done over the last couple days video-wise. On Monday, I seriously don't remember what we did on Monday. What did we do? Do you have the memory
Of what we did on Monday?
Yeah, what did we do on Monday? Oh, I remember now. I remember what we did on Monday. It was a cool video. What did we do? She doesn't remember either.
I'm drawing a blank.
Because we do these
I got
videos.
Guppy stuck in my head.
Yeah, so we do the videos earlier. Like, we don't just shoot them on Monday and release them. We do the videos beforehand, and then we release them as we go. So anyway,
I don't remember what I did this
it was
morning.
the maintenance, right?
Yes.
So we talked about on Monday how to reduce the time on fish tank maintenance. One of the surprising things, did you look at the comments at all? Because I know sometimes you're busy and you don't get a chance to look at the comments for prime time.
I didn't even get to comment a lot on today's video. I am way behind.
So I don't want to say I was surprised, but I guess I was delightfully surprised. There were a lot of people who actually enjoy maintaining their fish tanks. They like to spend some time getting in there and fixing up their little ecosystems that they've created. And I don't know if I would expect anything less than that from people who are Primetime Aquatics viewers at this point. I just kind of figure that's, for the most part, people who watch, they're loving their tanks. They're loving being in them. And so that was pretty cool. So you can take our advice and make it shorter if you want. If you really enjoy it, hey, keep doing what you're doing. That's pretty awesome. I was delightfully surprised by that.
Now, I would be very curious for everybody who said, yes, I really enjoy maintenance. How many tanks you got? I'd be curious if there's any correlation, or maybe not at all.
Well, from the comments that I saw, and a lot of people shared how many tanks and that kind of thing. And there were quite a few people who had multiple tanks, and they just enjoy being in the tanks doing the maintenance. And there is a different sort of connection you have with your fish tank when you are actually maintaining the tanks. And quite frankly, it's a connection that I've lost a little bit, because I've always been very open. I don't maintain these 80 fish tanks. If I had to do this by myself, I would not have 80 fish tanks, because I don't have the time in the week to do that. It's Luke and it's Eli who are responsible for maintaining those fish tanks. And in a way, they know more about the tanks than I do, and their intricacies and how they function. They know which tanks tend to take on a little bit more, that require a little bit more maintenance. And I kind of do too, just from back in the day, but they have a much better handle on it. And it's different than when you just go in and feed the fish like I do once a day and look at the tanks like, oh, these are really great. But when you're in them, you learn a lot about your fish, about your ecosystem. And the more you're in those tanks, the more often, the higher the likelihood that you are going to find something that is off and find it earlier. So it was pretty interesting. Now, your video for today, What did you do on the small scape?
Talking about 3 really sweet crypts. They happen to be 3 of my favorites, but also ones that really work out great for nano tanks.
That's pretty cool. Before we go any further, I want to say we got some new members here hanging out with us. We got Owen and Renee. Thank you so much for becoming a Prime Timer, Primate, Prime Time partner. And same with Andy. So
Andy?
Yeah.
Is that the Andy? The Andy that we know and love? Yes.
I think it is.
Rink Shrimp?
So, yep. He's hanging with us too. Thank you so much, everybody. And then Tesla is over here dropping the $5.37.
Where have you been, Tesla?
Thank you very much for the super chat.
Thank you.
And it says, hey, Jason, Joanna, good to see you guys. I haven't been able to watch the live stream over the last few weeks. Well, that would explain why we're like, where you been?
Welcome back.
Well, we're glad you're here. That's the important thing. You're here hanging with us. So that's cool. Thank you so much. And we got Kevin and Lisa. Thank you very much for the super chat. Oh, got a little message that popped up. Are lead plant weights safe? Also, how do you keep siphon hoses clean and prevent getting mold in them? Using bleach makes me nervous. Those are 2 very good questions.
Yeah.
The lead weights, for the most part, are mostly safe. I don't know if I would necessarily want them in my tank for a really super long time. And maybe, just maybe, if you had a bunch of invertebrates, you might be taking a little bit more of a risk. But I don't think we've ever purposely left them in a tank for extended periods of time. So I would say try to get them out. I know at one point people were a little bit nervous about even like air stones that had lead weights that would weigh them down a little bit, like if they got cracked and the lead was exposed. So yeah, I mean, if you're concerned, maybe that's just something you don't want to have in your tank all the time. But if you're just going to chuck the plants in there for a couple days until you get a chance to plant them, it's probably going to be fine. In terms of keeping the hoses clean, this is going to sound bad, I really don't make a special attempt to keep the siphon hoses clean.
I could tell you that.
Well, do you?
I try.
You do. So you actually try, you make a concerted effort somewhere in your cleaning process. You're like, these siphon hoses are looking not the best. I'm going to do something about it.
Well, they don't really ever get that bad, but I do use smaller ones than your ginormous ones.
Yeah. So
they have to reach across the floor and stuff. Mine are smaller.
That's just it. Practically speaking, for us, a lot of our siphon hoses, they go to our wastewater system, but some of these some of these hoses are 10, 12 feet. A couple of them bypass the wastewater system completely, and the hose goes directly from the tank, like some of our 125s, and they go directly all the way to the floor drain. So those hoses are like 15 or 20 feet long. There really isn't a way to keep them from getting a little nasty. So yeah, I suppose you could use bleach. It's just not, and maybe I should be worrying about it more than I do, which is basically like 3% of my worry in the world. Maybe not even that, maybe like 0.003%. I don't really do much about it because I don't feel like there's a really great mechanism other than, like you said, with the bleach. I don't know if there's a really great mechanism other than that. So yeah, Marley, thank you so much for becoming a Prime Timer, Primate, Prime Time partner. Really appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
I want to grab a question real fast.
Sure.
Emperor Tetra wants to know what happened to the bear paw tank or the bear paw print rock in Emmett's tank. It's still there, but really funny. Very shortly, probably within like a few weeks of me setting it up. Of course, I do have cribs in there, and cribs will be cribs, and they're making homes and tending to stuff. It actually fell down. The rock actually fell, and it's kind of laying down. But I think it looks kind of cool like that too. And like I said, they're working on families.
Yeah, so
I've just kind of left it.
Yeah, and to be clear, cribs, cribensis, they're little cichlids, West African cichlids, really cool, but they do dig a little bit around structure. They're not like crazy diggers like some of the South and Central American, like the monster fish. They're like, I had substrate throughout the entire tank. A big giant pit was dug, and now there's just gravel or sand piled up against the back of the tank. Cribs don't quite do that, but they'll dig enough to topple some rocks and maybe knock over some driftwood a little bit if it's not secured to the bottom of the tank. So that can happen. Again, Marley, thank you so much for becoming a Prime Timer. Ted Steele, thank you very much for the super sticker guy doing its thing. That's pretty cool. I've never seen that one before.
No, me neither.
That's pretty cool. Thank you.
Cute.
So yeah, so we had those two things video-wise, and yours on Wednesday. Tomorrow we'll do the members video. Friday I have a long-term product review. So one of the things that we like to do is I will typically do an unboxing and a review of something, whether it's filters or lights or some type of aquarium equipment, and then I like to give it at least a year. Patience, right? We'll give it a year at least. And then we come back to it and say, okay, after a year, what have we learned? How is it holding up? Are there any things that are annoying or things that really stood out that are cool compared to other products in the same category? So on Friday, I do have a long-term product review. And then Saturday, I'm sure you've got something coming up. What is that something? Don't look at me.
On Saturday?
Yeah.
Do you want to do a live stream?
You're springing this on me live.
Well, I asked you yesterday, so I thought that was like the...
Yeah, I don't even remember that conversation. So you must have been talking to me while I was busy. So apparently, unbeknownst to me, but beknownst to you, and now beknownst to all of you, we're finding out at the same time. Apparently, on the Smallscape, not this channel, the Smallscape, her channel, Joanna's channel, we are going to be doing a live stream.
Yay.
Those live streams, what time do they start? 9 a.m. Central Standard Time?
Yes, 9 to 10.
So they go for an hour. So they're from 9 to 10 when we do them. Apparently, we're going to be doing a live stream. Are we going to have a topic? What are we talking about?
Well, I know I have something to give away because I've started a new practice, just so you know. When I find something that I really, really like, I now buy 2. I get one, and then I give one away.
Okay, but it's a buy one, get one.
It's my mid-year New Year's resolution.
Mid-year New Year's resolution. So, for those of you, especially if you're catching on the replay because Wednesday evenings are just too busy, too hectic, too late, whatever, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, Saturday, on the Smallscape, we will be doing a live stream.
Be there, be square.
Yeah, be there. Melanie, thank you very much. Mel DC, welcome to being a prime timer, prime time partner. We're getting some members here. They're going to hang with us. So that's the video situation. I am happy to report that September starts tomorrow. I just wanted everybody to know that. September starts tomorrow.
That's sneaking right up.
What that means for us, you know what was weird? I couldn't talk in school today.
Really?
And yesterday. For some reason, I've had 2 straight days
Bummer.
where I cannot make words very well. And now I don't even remember what I was going to say. Oh, yes. Tomorrow starts September. September is basically what I consider, what many people consider to be the start of fish keeping season. Now, for us fish nerds, there is no season. It's 24/7, 365 days a year. But if you're in the aquarium hobby, what people often notice, or in the aquarium industry, whether it's fish stores or YouTube or anything else, September is when, the kids are back in school, the weather eventually starts to chill out a little bit, literally, and people get more interested in their fish tanks. The reason that matters is if you have fish clubs in the area, a lot of times the fish swaps start going full blast again. And in our case, in the Chicagoland area, we have some fish clubs that run swaps, the Greater Chicago Cichlid Association and the Greenwater Aquarium Society. So we have a Greenwater swap on the 11th, September 11th, on a Sunday. And then the week after is the GCCA on the 18th. So we'll be doing both of those swaps. And as always, we'll have the fish posted about 3 or 4 days before the swap, available for pre-order and all that stuff. So we're excited about that because there's just something about the fish swaps that say, hey man, fish season back in full swing. It's cool. So her 209, are we officially in fall yet?
No.
My personal feeling, especially in the Chicagoland area, I disagree with you humbly. I think that fall is September, October, and November. Winter is December, January, February. Spring is March, April, May, and then summer is June, July, and August. That's just how I roll. I know for people who live down south, it's like, nope, summer is January through December, and that's just how we roll. Although I say that jokingly, but I know that for some of you, it's like, well, no, you have it all wrong. In the wintertime, it gets down to like 60 degrees, sometimes even 50. And every once in a while, it snows for like a day, and then it all melts. For us, it's like 60 degrees is still like almost summertime. So
True.
Yeah, that's the story there.
But yes, I quasi agree with you that September begins the fall mindset. Officially, no, it's September 23rd, I believe, this year. is the start of
so
fall.
you go with the actual dates.
I do, but like mentally, because I've already started switching colors and doing some fall themed
Like
decor.
personally switching colors?
No.
She used to be yellow, but now she's purple.
No, like mums. Every year I say I'm not going to get mums. Every year, oops, got some mums. Had to do it. Just saying. Those are mums out front. Like the reddish, the warm reddish flowers.
Do you have a nice $90 bottle? No, but you can get a whole lot of mums. What movie is that from? Pumps. Andy, thank you very much for the number one guy. Thanks, man. Thanks for the super chat. Number one guy, dude. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. We'll see you at the swaps, right? That's the whole idea. And we've got some of Andy's Sulawesi shrimp.
Yes,
in these
we
tanks.
do.
Every once in a while we see them. They're very shy, but man, they're cool.
Oh my gosh, they are the coolest.
And you'll have to speak up. Which ones are the ones with the white hands? And it's like, pow, pow, pow. So they have red bodies, and then they've got the white
gloves.
White gloves, and they're just like pow, 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 pow. I don't remember which variety.
So
I don't think they were the
cool.
reds, but
oh my goodness,
yeah, it's really cool. Let's take some questions. I think it's time. We haven't answered any questions. We've been in this thing for 17 minutes.
Jeez.
We got to do this. Oh, one more thing. Obviously, Aquashella is the 8th and 9th of October. We're really looking forward to that. We're actually starting to gear up, like mindset, because it's about a month away, which is pretty cool.
Crazy.
Yes, it is. Gabriel says, thanks for inspiring. What would cause a black skirt tetra to change the color of its skirt from black to gold, then silver, and then back to black? Well, that's a lot of color changing, kind of like Joanna does in the fall. It could be two things, well, a bunch of things. Stress. So there could have been some type of stressor in the tank. Fish will change colors. They'll fade. They'll especially some cichlids, they'll change colors sometimes somewhat dramatically when they're stressed out, or when they are showing dominance. So if there are other males in the tank and they want to show some dominance, they will sometimes change colors, or they want to be submissive. They will sometimes change colors. Now, things like tetras, they don't do it quite as severely as cichlids do, but they are still capable in some cases of doing that. So stress due to any number of reasons, other fish, water quality issues. Sometimes I have fish that will change colors depending on where they're at in the tank. And this is especially true, and maybe some of you have noticed this, with like bristlenose plecos. If they are on a darker log, they start to darken up. The minute they go on lighter sand, that's when all of a sudden they lighten up and you actually start to see spots. And I'll have people ask me all the time, hey, what variety of pleco is that, bristlenose pleco? I've never seen it tan with white spots. I'm like, it's the exact same one as the one right next to it that's dark. The difference is it's trying to blend in with its surroundings. If you want bristlenose plecos to look pretty cool, when you lighten up the substrate, they actually get lighter and you start to see more of that freckling, those spots, where if it's really dark in there, they go almost black. It's pretty cool. It's crazy. So any one of those things, females in the area, sometimes they'll show their fins and have a little bit more color as well. And again, if you really want to see that to the extreme, a lot of the South and Central American cichlids, some of them will change colors dramatically. They won't even look like the same fish. And I tell people, be very careful when you are looking at South and Central American cichlids and trying to determine if you want to purchase them and add them to your tank. The pictures that you're going to see that stand out the most are often the pictures where the males are showing off in full color to the females, or they have fry and they're showing off all their colors. Same with the females. They'll show a lot more color when there's fry in the area. And then you get them in 95% of the time, they're a lot less vibrant. So you just have to be careful. Make sure when you go through and you look at Google Images and you're considering a fish, really kind of scroll through. And sometimes you're like, well, it looks really amazing there. I'm going to buy it. And like 3 pictures later, like, well, that's not as exciting. That one's probably just sick. No, that's probably the way it looks most of the time when it's not breeding.
If they didn't Photoshop the background. Wendy wants to see your
true
mug.
Too.
It's a cool mug, and it is. This is one of the best souvenirs.
Yeah, so this came from Fort Myers. We often go to Fort Myers when we are going to the Orlando Aquashella. We'll stop at Fort Myers, which is actually nowhere near Orlando. It's like
not.
4 hours away, but
It's kind of
we like
touristy.
Fort Myers.
Really cute, though. Really like it. Really, it was a solid choice, and I kind of kicking myself. Yes, it was your choice. Well done.
Yeah. Melanie says, rainbows are the ultimate color changers. They sure are. They love to change colors. Like non-cichlids, they do that very, very well. Yeah. Real quick, thank you to Dave. Thank you to Wendy. Oink, I saw you were here, all our moderators hanging out.
Dave.
I don't know if anybody else is here. I said Dave.
Oh, I said Dave again. Dave.
Okay, Dave again.
Dave.
Thanks, Dave, again. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Appreciate it. Let's see here. What else we got? You got something you want to talk about?
I did. I had two. All right. This is from Silver Creek Aquatics. What are your thoughts on Siamese Chinese algae eaters with black, I'm assuming black mollies, in a 29-gallon with a couple mystery snails and a sponge filter?
Okay, so we said two things there, though. You said Siamese or Chinese. Which one?
It says Siamese. Maybe
Slash.
that. Yeah, slash.
Okay, so they're very different fish. Siamese algae eater and a Chinese algae eater are very, very different in their size and their temperament and what they do in terms of algae. Chinese algae eaters, I would not ever put them in a 29 regardless of the fish that I'm keeping in there. Chinese algae eaters, they're actually, when they're young, they look pretty cool. They're tan. They've got that black checkering along their sides. People see them at the Petcos, the PetSmarts, like, oh, they eat algae, and they do. Especially when they're young, they go crazy, and they do a really good job. I mean, the Chinese algae eaters, they'll go on plastic plants, get over the plant, under the leaves. They're meticulous. The Chinese algae eater, as it gets larger, by the way, I did a species profile. It was one of the early videos I did. The video quality is not the best, but the information's good. But Chinese algae eaters, one, they get pretty large. I've seen them with my own eyes, 8 to 10 inches. You know, a lot of sources will tell you they can get a foot long. I've never seen them that large, but 8 to 10 inches I have. I've had them about 8 inches long in a 150. When they get larger, they just start to turn kind of brownish, and they get an attitude problem. And so they become territorial with one another, and they become kind of a nuisance. And so I generally say if you're going to keep Chinese algae eaters, it's probably best to keep them in a semi-aggressive tank. Like maybe you've got some Jack Dempsey's, some Firemouths, some Severum. Well, Severums are wide bodied, so you got to be careful there. Sometimes they'll suck the slime coat of those wider bodied fish, but fish that are a little bit more assertive. On the flip side, the Siamese, those fish are less aggressive. They don't get quite as large. I've had a few of them in the fish room for a very long time. I originally got them because I was worried that there would be some blackbeard algae in one of my early planted tanks. And A, there's no blackbeard algae at all in that tank, never was. And B, I ascribe part of that to them because they're one of the few fish, the Siamese algae eaters, one of the few fish that will actually graze on blackbeard algae. Now, it won't do it all the time. And if they're super well fed, they might not do it at all. But if they're moderately fed and you have blackbeard algae in the tank, sometimes they will consume it. They don't get as large. They're not quite as aggressive, although they can be somewhat aggressive with one another sometimes. In a 29, you could probably do one. I wouldn't go any more than that. But stay away from the Chinese algae eater in a tank that size. Fish fan, 20-gallon long. Thank you so much for the super chat. My betta is a French vanilla color with hints of lavender and is getting along well in my community aquarium. I've never seen one this color. He is docile and hasn't shown any aggression. Have you ever seen one this color? So French vanilla with hints of lavender. We had one similar in the 2.5 down in the kitchen. Remember that? It was like a really light, the body was a really light purplishy color, but then the fins got red. They were more red in the fin area.
Do you know what color French vanilla is?
It's like, well, French vanilla,
Off-white.
isn't it? Yeah, it was off-white with lavenderish in the body.
No,
it's on a video.
Fish was like purpley and red for majority. There was not a lot of very light color, but
We're
I
gonna have
did
to
see.
agree to disagree.
That's really cool. Purple is an unusual color. I think it's like one of the rarer colors for a betta that you won't see. Hopefully that betta will stay those colors because that sounds really, really beautiful.
Yeah.
I saw a. Was it Noel? Was it Noel who asked what the name is? I thought of the perfect name
For what?
for this betta.
Which betta?
The French vanilla
okay.
and lavender.
I didn't realize we were asked for a name.
No.
Oh, you're getting a name.
But Noel had asked like, well, what's the name of the betta? I thought of one that would be really great,
Well, what if
and
it's
I
already
just
got
thought
a
I would
name?
share.
You can't
That's
overname
fine.
a fish.
No, then you totally disregard. But I just follow along. All right, ladies, especially ladies. If I say like Okay, so French vanilla sounds kind of fancy, but kind of like ice cream, right? And then lavender, really calming, really pretty. All these things have images of really pretty places and stuff. What do you think of? That's right, Hallmark movies. Hallmark Christmas movies. I know, it's a little bit of a stretch, so I would call the betta Hallmark. There you go.
But if you've got a name...
Yeah, no, I'm not saying to rename your fish.
Because next thing you know, the fish is going to... it always comes to the glass when I hear its name called. Now you change up the name. The fish is like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not my name.
I can't tell you how many times I've set out to name a fish. I'm like, oh, I really like that. But then I just wind up calling him or her something else, and it just sticks.
It just sticks.
I'm just sharing that it would be kind of fun.
Well,
so if anybody who is out there loves Hallmark movies, Hallmark Christmas movies, I'm just asking for a friend. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. So I saw a question, and now for the life of me, I can't remember what.
I'm sorry, this is just so funny. Silver Creek says, I just named a betta Chris Pratt.
Okay. Must be a wonderful looking fish. Now, I can't find who asked the question anymore, but I saw a question. Otocinclus, which are the little algae eater guys, in a 40-gallon for sure. Here it is. It was cracking. So, yeah, you could definitely do that. Keep a big group, like at least a dozen, especially in a 40-gallon. You got plenty of space for those little tiny fish. I would do at least a dozen. Make sure that if you don't have sufficient amounts of algae that you're feeding them so that they're getting their vegetable matter. A lot of people, when they buy algae-eating type fish, once those fish have done what they do and consumed all the algae, they can starve to death if you don't specifically feed them. I've always had problems in my water with otos because our water is too hard with pH is too high, but if you've got water that's closer to neutral and a little bit softer, they can do well. Just keep them, like I said, keep them in a nice group. All right. I saw another one. April says, is it okay to put pothos in an Oscar and bristlenose tank, or will they eat the roots? I don't think they're going to eat the roots because we've got bristlenose in almost all of our tanks, and we've got some tanks that have had very extensive root systems, and that was in spite of the bristlenose being there. So I don't think the bristlenose will do anything. Will the Oscars eat the roots? That I don't know, only because when I have tried to establish pothos in our 125 that had our Oscars in there, it would never establish itself. I don't know if it was because some of the fish were eating the roots, but there were a lot of different fish in there. There was the Oscar, we had a tilapia, we had some African peacock cichlids. The peacock cichlids, I'm thinking, left it alone because they leave it alone in our 75. So it must, if somebody was eating the roots, it was either the Oscar or the tilapia. I kind of put my money on the tilapia because those fish, at least in terms of their diet, are like a swimming garbage can. They will literally eat anything, to the point where I don't think I could ever consume tilapia. As you know, like you can go out and be like, hey, I want the fish. What do you got? Tilapia. Okay, I'm going to have that on my plate. I've seen what these fish eat. They literally are completely...
You mean like lobster and shrimp?
Yes, which I still sometimes
The irony
eat.
of it all.
I know. But yeah, those things are the swimming garbage can of the lake, for sure. They'll eat it all. All right, what else? What you got?
Oh, we got some different names. That's cool. All right, so Zen Ginger was thinking chamomile, with the vanilla and lavender, call it chamois or camo. So maybe cami or camo. Oh, that'd be really cute. I like it. Any kind of food reference is super fun.
Yep.
Love it. This one is from... All right, Strawberry Goldfish. Got a rather unique tank from Aquashella from the Voodoo booth. It is about 27 inches, 27 by 14 by 5.
Okay, so it's kind of it's almost like a low boyish type
like
thing.
Kind of like a 2 by 1 by a half. All right. Thinking chili rasboras, shrimp, and otos.
Yeah.
No leg.
Oto, let's
Too small for otos?
It's too small for, and it's not that the otos grow too large. Again, it's about the number. Maybe. I mean, it's 24 inches, so that's the length. So basically, you got the length of a standard 20, 14 inches, so it's wider than a 20 because a 20 is only 12 and a half inches, but it's very short.
It's my little mini little boy that I want.
Yeah, you're still probably only looking at, that's got to be like a
nice tank,
15-gallon tank somewhere in there. Maybe 12. I might not do the otos. I might opt instead for maybe some mystery snails, just because of the quantity, but you said chili rasboras and
Shrimp.
Yeah. But maybe do mystery snails. Maybe not the Otos. Second floor, tilapia makes me think of Oscars, and I can't eat them. Yeah, I don't. Even before I had our tilapia, I didn't eat tilapia, not because they were a human swimming garbage can. In fact, I don't think I really fully appreciate it until I kept it as a pet. But yeah, I really can't. Carolyn, thank you so much for the super chat. I had to stop being an official primate, but I am in spirit. Love you guys. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for being here, hanging out with us. That's the thing that matters, is we get to hang out.
Absolutely.
That's the cool thing.
Especially all the way over in California.
California. Do, 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 do. Now you guys got that song stuck in your head. By the way, I don't think anybody got my movie quote. I didn't see anybody. When I said,
no, you slipped it in maybe.
Yeah, so when I said,
advertised as a...
you got a nice $100 bottle, you can get a whole lot of mums. And you got any of those patches, the nicotine patches? No, but we got the gum. Okay, that's an additional quote. It's not a popular one, so if you know that movie, it's pretty nerdy of you. But I'll Meet the Parents, boom.
Bam.
Chad got it right away. Maybe somebody else did earlier and I just missed it. I'm sorry if I did. Like, man, you didn't give me credit. Credit is all yours. Victoria says, what's up, by the way? There are many fish I personally can't eat after jumping into the hobby. Yeah, I no longer eat neons.
Well, the one that I actually can no longer order at a restaurant are the Neocaridina shrimp.
Yeah, like the little shrimp poppers, pizza puffs and shrimp poppers, extreme fajitas. Yeah, we're throwing them all out there today. Conrad, appreciate the super chat. You guys' videos played a part of getting me into the aquarium hobby. You all are personable, informative, and relatable. Thank you for making vids. Well, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate the super chat. Glad you're hanging out with us tonight. Being cool. That's you. Ray says, can you explain how to add alkaline buffer and acid buffer for a pH of 7.0? I don't do it. So I am not an expert in adding these buffers because I don't add buffers really at all. The only time I would even consider it if I was using straight RO water and I had to buffer the water a little bit because it would basically have nothing in it, then yes, then it's perfectly acceptable to use GH and KH buffering. But I am a big fan of just keeping fish that can do well in our water. And our water is a pH, it ranges from 8 to 8.2, GH and KH of 10 degrees for both. And so all the fish you see that we keep, all the shrimp, all the snails, everything we have is doing well in the water parameters that we have. Once I start getting in the buffering situation, that takes a lot more time. What I will say is what I tell everybody when they're going to be altering water parameters, and that is don't do it in a tank with live specimens at first. Do it in a tote. Get yourself a 15-gallon tote, fill it with water, fill it with, ideally with the substrate that you're going to be using, the rocks that you're going to be using. See what you're starting with. And then practice using the buffers to try to manage the pH and keep it steady, understanding that this method that I'm talking about does not include livestock. And livestock, by their very nature of producing waste, are also going to alter water chemistry. But it's a good start. It's a good place to start. I have used the Fritz African cichlid salts buffer, but it did basically nothing for our water because our water was already, for the most part, pretty close to ideal for the African cichlids. But we have used it. That's a relatively safe way to go. I would tell you, especially if you want to go up in pH, I would prefer to use a substrate that will accomplish that, like an aragonite or the Carib Sea African cichlid mix, and then it's just there, right? And you're getting that stabilization going up. Going down is not as easy. Going down, especially if you've got a high pH with high GH and KH, usually the best way to do that is to add RO water. And then that's going to slowly lower your GH and KH, which will eventually, that KH is your buffering capacity. As that decreases, the wood, the organics, the fish themselves will then contribute to potentially lowering that pH a little bit. The trick is consistency, and that's why I don't mess with the stuff. I'd rather have a consistent pH than something where I have to play with it and have it fluctuate too much. What you have there.
From Legion Aquatics, would this work in a 55-gallon? 6 yellow labs, 6 red zebras, and 6 purple ACI.
In a 55? I like the yellow labs. The red zebras, I've mixed those with the yellow labs without any problems, and I've actually mixed all 3 of those fish together without any issues. Sometimes the male red zebras, when there are females in the tank, they'll get a little bit more assertive and scope out an area. Instead, the only reason why I hesitate with the ACI is they get big. Even for a 75 full-grown male Pseudotropheus ACI, look a little large in that tank. I've got some males, or a male now. There's only one in there, I think, at this point. That's probably 7, maybe close to 8 inches, and it's significantly bigger than the rest of the fish. I kind of like keeping the ACI at least a 75-gallon. Even a 6-foot tank would be more ideal if I were doing. So if it were me and I were doing a 55 in Buna tank. Yellow labs are great. Love it. If you want to add in blue, consider adding either Pseudotropheus solosi, where the females are still going to give you some yellow, but the males will give you that blue color. There'll be stripes, unlike the ACI, which are more solid. The red zebra may or may not work out. Again, those males, when they're breeding, tend to be a little bit more aggressive. I've kept them in a 75 without any issues, but the 55, it's a little bit more narrow. So, but that's probably the one change I would make. What else you got over there?
We got a movie quote. You ready?
We do.
Yeah, it's from Fish Fan.
Okay.
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
That sounds extremely familiar.
It does sound familiar.
I don't know if I know it. Does anybody know it? Man,
well, think
that
about
sounds
it.
really familiar. I'm gonna have to think about that one.
All right, Whip has a
Whip's here.
Yep, first-time commenter, long-time listener.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, and long-time heckler.
Yes,
I'm going to add that
all
one.
that is true.
Let's see.
Oink says Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That actually, yes, yeah. I've seen that movie multiple times. Why didn't I knew it sounded familiar,
Yeah, but
even as you were saying it.
Yeah, but when is it said? Is it towards the end of the movie?
I think it's towards the beginning.
Is it towards the beginning? Like where he's like saying like why they should take some time off?
Yeah. That's a good movie. Good quote.
Probably trying
Love
to talk
it.
his friend into ditching. Okay. Let's see. My 26-inch arowana, I'm assuming, nearly ripped the barbels off her face. Oh. They have now healed. Into the low and to the side and have turned black. A concern?
Well, sometimes, I don't know. Would I be concerned? I guess I'd want to know, is the fish eating? Is it moving naturally? Is it swimming? Is it active? Is it doing all the things it would normally do? Is that black color spreading? Because sometimes, not always, but sometimes that can indicate dead tissue. So I doubt that's what's going on, but it can happen. Sometimes if it's regrown, that could just be a phase in which it's growing, and then it will eventually return back to normal, and sometimes it just stays that way. So just keep an eye. As long as it's behaving normally, that's the main thing. Marley says, using rubbing alcohol is safe to clean hard water stains on my tank. If the tank is empty, I wouldn't put rubbing alcohol in a tank that's got fish in it. I think a better way to possibly do that is using vinegar. Sometimes that will take it off a little bit more, a little bit easier than the rubbing alcohol. But yeah, just make sure that you rinse that stuff out. It's denatured, but you don't want that in the water, that's for sure. Yep. All right, let me see here. Justin says, I have a 29-gallon with 6 pandacories already in it. I have really wanted to add gold honey grammies and zebra daniels. How many of these should I add? All right, so 29-gallon, you got 6 pandas, that's cool. Gold honey grammies, you could do a half a dozen easy and probably not have any issues. The zebra daniels, do a big group if you're going to do those, because they tend to kind of pick one another off, like some of the more aggressive, they're not tetras, or they're not like the Buenos Aires, but they will sometimes pick each other off. So I'd want at least 12 to 15 in a 29 with the 6 honeys and the 6 pandas. That should probably work okay. It'll hopefully keep them from sparring too much. DJ says, wanting to switch to sand in my freshwater tank. Any recommendations for a good sand to choose?
Well, if you want black sand, my favorite happens to be top fin black sand from PetSmart.
Not sponsored, not in any way, shape, or form.
PetSmart does not know me.
Nope.
Nope.
They do not know us.
That's my favorite. If you like a white, a very bright sand, it's a lot finer, so you can't gravel vac this one. Now, the top fin one, you can. It's a kind of a larger grain. But the Carib Sea Moonlight, it's wonderful. And then what is the tannish color one that's also Carib Sea? It's also fine.
Naturals?
Is it Supernaturals?
It's the Carib Sea Naturals. Yeah.
Is
line.
it? Mm-hmm. What's the color though?
Tan.
No.
Well,
I'll look it up. So those would be my favorite sands. But you can plant plants in any kind of sand. And then if you are planting in there, all you got to do is add some nice little root tabs and you are good to go.
Ray asked a good question. Is 7.2 pH really that much higher than a 7.0? When keeping fish in a stable pH, not really. If fish prefer 7.2 is going to be fine. If it changes from 7 to 7.2 or 7.2 back to 7, the pH scale is logarithmic, which means every time that number changes from 7 to 8, from 8 to 9, 9 to 10, it's actually changing the concentration of hydrogen ions, protons by either up or down by a factor of 10. So every time that number changes. So it's actually a fairly decent change. That change would be more important if it was happening internally. If it's happening externally from 7 to 7.2, if it happens slowly, it's probably not a big deal. If it kept fluctuating 7.2, 7.2, it could probably cause a little bit of stress on fish, but it's not a massive difference, at least from an external water perspective. But again, if you're like, oh, this fish prefers 7, but it's at 7.2 and it's consistent, I wouldn't worry about it at all. Yep.
You know what Wake Master said?
What?
Thanks for the info. If you're a fan of the movie Jaws, AMC Theaters is re-releasing the aquatic masterpiece back into theaters starting tomorrow. The ultimate num 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 movie.
Nice.
That's a great movie.
Salient Aquatics. At prime time, stop skipping my question or I'll have Ben Ochart come back me up. I didn't see your question, but feel free to pop that bad boy back in this chat and I will...
What is it? Who?
Where did it go? Now your name is skipped.
My chat is like moving in like
Salient.
chunks, and I'm
Salient.
Salient?
I didn't catch the rest of it. Oh, here, Salient Aquatics. Yeah, there we go. All right, let me see what we got here. Ernie B says, I have a Java fern with some babies starting to grow on the end of a couple leaves.
Congrats.
How long do you have to leave them, and how to propagate them?
I just leave them on until they're big enough to like find on their own. So when they're super tiny, they're just going to be, if you let them go or glue them, they're just so super tiny. So I just
maybe an inch.
And then sometimes
maybe
they'll
got some roots.
They'll just fall off by themselves.
Yeah. They will eventually do that, but usually if they've got some roots about an inch or so, you can probably do something else with them. Garden of Eaters here. What's up, Grant?
Hey, Grant.
Shelby. In case you're there too.
Hey, Shelby.
What's up?
Wait, so did you read Salient's question? I have it here.
No. Okay, no, read it.
Oh my gosh, this chat is like got a mind of its own. I'm like holding it down and it's still like moving. All right. Any real difference between Extreme Aquatics nice version versus cichlid peewee to where I can't feed just one of them to my ambunas?
I have not fed Extreme in many years, so I don't know. It's been a long time. I know it's more popular now, but I was feeding that food way before anybody on YouTube was talking about it because I used to get it from Gemco. I used to get it in big, giant bulk containers many years ago before it became popular, but it's good food. I don't know. I haven't fed it, and like I said, we do Northfin exclusively now for all of our prepared foods. Fish love it. Keeps the tanks from getting, kind of cloudy, nasty. There's those higher end foods. What's nice is there's more nutrients. It's not so much fillers. So when the fish eat it, they're consuming more nutrients and then they're producing less waste. It actually helps your tank maintenance too. That's one thing we really didn't mention in that tank maintenance video. Feed high quality foods, fish will have less waste, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I saw a question I really wanted to answer and now it's all, Jay says, how much protein is too much protein for Tropheus? One, I have not kept Tropheus in 8 or 10 years. Two, the Tropheus protein question is interesting because it's not so much that Tropheus do not possess the enzymes to break down high quality, high content protein. They do have those enzymes. Part of the issue is the flora that exist in their gut in combination with the enzymes they produce. They don't do the greatest job in the world of breaking down high protein foods. I have seen plenty of people transition, not plenty, I've seen a few people transition their trophies to higher protein foods slowly, very slowly over time. And I think what that's done is it's sort of changed the composition of the bacteria, the normal flora in their gut so that they can handle higher protein loads. My response to doing that is why bother, right? If the normal flora in their gut is naturally going to be microbes that do better with more vegetable matter, and the enzymes that they possess naturally do better with more vegetable matter, I would stick with things like kelp wafers and the vegetable type of products that you would normally feed the Tropheus, and probably just stay away from things like bloodworms and that kind of stuff, just because it'll make life a little easier. All right. Legend Fish Tanks recently purchased a 150 gallon, and I was wondering what would be the best South American cichlids for it and how many of each. So you got a 150, it's a 6-foot tank. It's a great tank, so congratulations there. If I were doing it, so I'm just going to tell you what I would do in a 150. I appreciate fish that don't destroy my fish tank decorations / aquascape. And if I were going to be doing South American cichlids, I would want Geophagus. They're the first. There's so many different options. You could do Tapajos, Wine Milleri, Altafrons, the Pellegrini we've kept. The only Geophagus maybe I would stay away from is the Braziliensis. They dig a little bit more aggressive, but and maybe the Steindachnerai might be a slightly more aggressive and maybe not as pretty as some of the other ones. But look at the Geophagus. If you're not doing plants, look at Severums. You could do angelfish with those combinations. You could do discus if you wanted to go that route. And obviously you'd have special considerations there. Part of it depends on your water quality. I'm not a big fan of doing fish that are going to dig the heck out of my substrate and just be like tank busters. I mean, we've had Midas cichlids, we've done Oscars. I've done pretty much all the big fish or moderately big fish that fish keepers normally go through, the Jack Dempseys, the Texas cichlids, the green terrors, all that. I love them. They look cool. They have an incredible personality, but I just don't like what they do to my tank, and that is they make it their own. And sometimes I want it to still look like a tank I would appreciate. So check out the Geophagus. Geophagus severums.
Moose wants to know Scarlet Baddis with sparkling gouramis in a 10-gallon.
Scarlet Baddis with sparkling gouramis. I don't know.
They both can be really shy, but they can also both be stinkers.
Yeah, maybe, but I would probably want a backup plan just because it's a 10-gallon, and the Scarlet Baddis can be somewhat assertive, and I just hate to see that wind up with your Scarlet Baddis becoming slightly territorial and then chasing some of the sparklers around, and they get really shy, and you hardly ever see them.
Yeah.
But it could also work out just fine. If anybody's kept them together, please pipe up, because we haven't kept all fish combinations together, and if you have valuable experience for your classmates, your chatmates. Aaron says, "What's up, fish fam? Lurking as usual." Hey, that's cool. Glad you're here. But now when you left a message, you're not lurking anymore. You're part of the thing. Yep.
That's right.
It's true. It's a true story. All right, I just saw one. Cameron says, tips on separating feeding between my golden algae eater and my gold severum. The algae eater acts aggressive towards the severum, and I don't like it. Yeah, remember. So that was kind of what we were talking about, right? The beginning, the algae eaters. By the way, the gold ones are still kind of pretty, right? So I was talking, when I was mentioning Chinese algae eaters at the beginning of this, I was talking about the standards. The gold ones are actually, they stay somewhat nice looking, but you've got some Chinese algae eater. I'm surprised that gold severum has taken that, because is it small still? Like, is the gold severum still like less than this big? Because when they get larger, a lot of times they're like, "Whoa, wait a minute, time out here, little Chinese algae eater. I'm not really going to take this from you anymore. My mouth can be powerful and dangerous, and can be painful if I bite you." So if it's on the larger side and you're still having that issue, feed them at the Chinese algae eater will scavenge once the lights go off. So you could try feeding the gold severum, maybe some floating, and even if the lights are on, maybe try feeding them the gold severum floating flakes, or most flakes float for a little while. It's not the most nutritious prepared food in the world, but floating flakes, you can try feeding pellets that stay floating for a little while, especially larger ones, and then they eat, and then the stuff eventually falls. Your Chinese algae eater gets the stuff that falls to the bottom. Or do a combo, right? Feed a little bit of sinking pellets, a little bit of stuff that's going to float for a while, maybe a little bit of flake as well, larger flake if the severum's larger, and then they should both find happiness. If not, try different times. Feed that Chinese algae eater at night. Yes, ma'am.
All right, Lucas wants to know. I almost missed this. Glad I didn't. Hey, Lucas.
So,
My question, do you have any advice for finding rare fish? I'm looking for gold headrunner or formosa. He mentioned he was looking for the little goldies.
guys, you got right in here.
Yeah. And cauliflower swordtails, can't find either. Now, these guys, you're not in the Chicagoland, anywhere remotely around the Chicagoland area, are you? Because that's where we got these little guys.
In the Chicagoland area?
Yeah, the golds. That's where
Where did we get them, though?
from the GCA swap.
Yes, the GCC and Greenwater swaps.
Yeah.
To be more specific about the Chicagoland area. That's my joke. If not, try Aquabid. Aquabid is a place where people sell fish that they've bred. You don't necessarily always know what you're going to be getting in terms of, you kind of got to look through the reviews and see if there's high customer satisfaction. But Aquabid is a place, also the Wet Spot, which they have lots of different types of fish. They ship out of, I think it's, where is it, like Oregon, Washington area. I know they're out by like Corey and Zenzo and those guys out on the West Coast, upper Northwest.
Yeah.
But I haven't used the Wet Spot, and so I often recommend them. I've never used them. People who have seem to think that it's okay. They like the quality of fish that they get, and I recommend them because they've got such a massive fish online shipping thing for unusual fish. So that can be a place to check out. Jay says, do you use your biology degree for work? As a matter of fact, I do, because I am a biology professor. So that's what I do. That's my day job, and this is my evening / every other moment of my life job is on YouTube. But yeah, so I teach biology, microbiology. I've done taught classes in virology, the study of viruses, pathology, parasitology, biology of mammals, zoology, genetics, organismal bio. I'm probably forgetting a couple. Taught a lot of different classes. So, yep, that's what I do. All right, let's see here. Cameron says, anyone in the comments have any suggestions on floating cichlid foods? Some of the Northfin stuff will float. And even the Bug Pro floats for a little bit of time. I mean, it sinks relatively fast, but it will stay floating for a little while.
Matthew, let's see. Will Crypt Parva carpet in the Venti 1 gallon? That's right, because you won the Venti. And I think you mentioned, too, that you did an unboxing. So I still have to look at that.
Sweet.
Will it carpet? Not really. Crypt Parva is not really a carpeting plant, per se. And in a 1 gallon, it would I would probably scoot it towards the middle or the back, because it will eventually get 2 to 4 inches tall. Now, Microsword would probably be a little bit closer to what you're considering to be a carpeting plant. I would give that one Microsword, aka Liliopsis brasiliensis. You may want to look into, and they're both low light plants. I think you'll like them equally.
Yeah. Robert's got a good one. Tiger barbs or Bosemani rainbows for clown loach tank mates, or both? Depends on the size of the tank. I would opt for the rainbows. In either case, whether it's tiger barbs or Bosemani rainbows, I personally, you got clown loaches in there, so we definitely need minimum of a 4-foot tank, but eventually those clown loaches are going to require an even larger tank. But I kind of like the Bosemanis only because you're going to get a very different look. So you've already got the orange fish with the black vertical lines. So why not do something different, right? So that might make a more striking look, because the Bosemanis are going to have that blue and the yellow, and then you've got the clown loaches that are going to have the orange and the black. That will look cool. Also, a little bit less assertive. The tiger barbs are definitely going to add a little bit more assertiveness, maybe fin nip each other once in a while. But I would go with rainbows. And you don't have to do just Bosemani. You could do a bunch of different types of rainbows to kind of switch things up. It'd be cool. All right. Let me see here. I am scrolling. I wanted to scroll up because I felt like I missed something. Oink says, I got my rescue group. Last year I would sit on the floor and the blood parrots would bring the sand all the way across the 125 and drop in front of me and make hills. Eventually, all I could see was their eyes. That's
Blink,
crazy.
blink.
It's like, hey, man, I got something for you. Want to see how I work? Look what I'm doing. I'm helping. Lucas says, I'm from Quad Cities. I might be willing to make the trip to Chicagoland for those beauties, though. Oh, that's cool. So you're part of the Quad Cities swap. We're actually thinking about not this month, but at some point in the fall, we'd like to head out there and check out that swap. I don't know if we'll have a table or not, but I've heard some good things. I've heard really good things about the Quad Cities. For us, the GC Greater Chicago Cichlid Association has the larger of the two swaps. They'll run 800-900 people through there in a day, and then the Greenwater is a little bit smaller, but great. They're still very, very good. But I've heard Quad Cities has gotten to the point where they're almost the size of the GCCA in terms of the number of vendors and the people they're putting through on a given day. So definitely want to check it out.
MTS. Hey, MTS is here.
What's up?
Anyone know where to find a cool crayfish?
Cool crayfish.
Rink?
Yeah, Rink's got them for sure. We got a cool orange one at the Greenwater Points auction. So
Rink Shrimp Farm.
Those ones you'd have to look online, I think, and just the same places I told you about too would also most likely have them. Chris says, anybody know why my bettas get hyper every time they eat? Now, some fish do that. Cichlids, a lot of the African cichlids, every time I walk over the tank, it's like they've never eaten a day in their life. They're like, oh my gosh, what is this delicious morsels you've thrown in my world? I'm like, it's the same stuff I put in there 12 hours ago and 24 hours ago and 36 hours ago, but every time it's like they've never eaten a day in their lives. I have found, and it's actually really cute, the dwarf rasboras that we have, that we bring to the swaps, they, just like cichlids, go crazy when it's time to eat. But they're really, they're back here behind Joanna's head. But they're really tiny, and they too are like, hey man, this is so great. It's time to eat. Let's be crazy like the cichlids. So they're
crazy
very interesting.
surfers.
Yeah. And they love the flow. They really do. They just sit there and swim in the flow. You'd be like, don't you guys want to take a break? No, man, we're swimming. We're going places. Well, actually, you're not, but they're little. They've got the tiniest brains. So
That they do.
Silver Creek says, don't laugh at me for having a 120 full of mollies. I have molly attachment issues. That's cool.
That's a lot of Molly love.
I
love
like
it.
that. I would love to do a live bear 125, like a 6-foot tank with swords, mollies, guppies, platies.
Yeah.
And we still
cool.
never did. We never did the planted platy plaid tank.
No, we didn't. That wasn't
I
on the
still
docket.
a long time ago. Does anybody remember that? Does anybody remember in the live stream? This is going back a ways, so I'd be surprised if anybody was here back in those days. But we talked about doing the planted platy plaid tank. It was going to be a planted platy tank, and there was going to be a plaid background.
Yeah.
We still need to do that, and I think it's just going to have to be something that we do. It'll be the ultimate.
It'll be epic. It'll be earth-shattering.
And it will be ugly.
It
guaranteed.
Yes,
It's the whole idea.
It will be.
We'll have the ugliest tank on YouTube. That's the goal.
Makes it so awesome.
That's and the plants don't even have to be real. The planted plaid tank.
Oh no.
It could be purple.
I don't think they could be real. If we're talking plaid.
Oh my gosh, it would just be like, it would be the worst. Mary Beth says, I remember the platy tank. Yeah. Matthew does stuff. Good to be different. That's right. Matthew Navarro says, I'm planning on keeping chili rasboras in my 5.5. Could I keep rocket killies too? I'm curious about them. The killies might be a little too active for the 5.5. I know they're small, but they might be a little bit too active. So just
those are fun though.
Yeah,
rocket killies. Whew.
Yeah, they are. But the rasboras, yeah, for sure. We've got them in a 5.5 downstairs. The dwarfs, like 10 of them, I think, if not more. All right, let me see here. What else we got? Cameron says, I have 2 hang-on backs with sponges on intakes and floss in one filter and some of the bio rings and carbon in the other. That's cool. Got some variety going on there. Like that. Hold on now. I'm scrolling around and feel free to pipe on in there. The Zen Ginger. Do all the research for Aquabid. Don't use people with no reviews or without a positive long track record to be safe. In my opinion, super sketchy. I'm glad that you shared that because I don't use the website. I just know that when I've been on there, that's a great place. Aquabid's a great place to just go and all of a sudden 2 hours later, like I should have been in bed 2 hours ago and I got lost in the abyss known as Aquabid with people selling. They just sell, like people sell some really odd things there, but you're absolutely right. Like anything else,
Like eBay.
do your research and don't make impulse buys and make sure that you know where the fish are coming from. Yeah, it's like eBay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What you got? You got something?
Let's see.
Second floor says, before your question, type in the @Primetime Aquatics so that I can see it. Yep, that certainly helps. Highlighted in orange. The second floor is holding down the fort with the other peeps there. Appreciate that.
Lumpy Dog says, mods address aquafish, please. Oh, you know what? I think that was the one that was what's known as spamming. If you ask the question multiple times in a row, usually those will get taken off just because it kind of clogs up the stream here at the comments. So if I can find the question, how many time treatment a driftwood by hot water? I'm guessing how many times do you need to treat driftwood with hot water, like boiling? Like how many, depends on the driftwood.
I would boil it until it depends. If you don't want the tannins there, then I boil it until the water turns brown, dump that out, refill it, boil it again until all the brown is gone. But if you're just trying to keep it from introducing something bad into your tank and you don't care about the tannins, then I just leave the wood in there until it gets to the boiling point, and then I pull it out. I mean, obviously I turn the water off and turn the heat off, wait for it to cool, and then I would pull that out. Okay, Stu, would it be a dumb experiment to start a nano tank with bottled water? That depends on, not necessarily, but it depends on the source of the bottled water. So bottled water can be a number of things. It can be bottled water that just came from a tap somewhere, in which case you're basically just using tap water that was in a bottle. Bottled water can come from a natural spring, in which case it might have, minerals and things like that in there, and then you'd want to test and see, no matter what, you'd want to test the GH, KH, pH, that kind of thing. Or the bottled water can be filtered, in which case a lot of those minerals have been removed potentially. Or they can be mineral infused. So you just got to be careful if you do that. You really have to know. It'd be nice to know what's in that water, if at all possible, especially your GH, KH, and pH.
Whips World says, this has nothing to do with nothing, but if you're in northern Illinois, the Big Dipper is glorious tonight. Whip, you just have so many layers.
The Big Dipper. I don't think I've looked at the Big Dipper in quite some time. It makes me want to just go out there and just see where it's at.
He's saying that you should.
Yeah, I think
it's
I will.
Glorious.
I'm going to take you up on that. After this thing is over, I think we should all go out and see if we can find the Big Dipper.
File outside.
Yep.
And look
in
up
honor of Whip.
and think of
and take a picture
Whip.
of it. Post it to Facebook and be like, copy Whip on there and be like, hashtag.
Wait,
Whip.
hashtag Whip's World.
Big Dipper. Yeah. That would be cool. Now, I did actually have something I wanted to. So, where did it go?
I don't know. In the meantime,
okay.
La Joyous, I have 3 Rasbora SBI? 3 Rasbora, unless it's something, with 4 dwarf chain loaches in a 29-gallon. Loaches are harassing the Rasboras. Any idea besides separating the tanks?
Sometimes that's necessary. Dwarf chain loaches are cool, but they can also be a little ornery. So that's kind of one of their unfortunate downsides sometimes. So if it doesn't straighten itself out, you may have to deal with that situation by separating the dwarf chains. I mean, they're so small, so that's cool. And a lot of people like the dwarf chain loaches, and I've brought them in the fish room before and sold them at swaps, but they're nice because they're small and they will do a number on snails, but at the same time, they got some screws loose sometimes, and not in a good way. Like clown loaches are often just goofy stupid. These dwarf chain loaches can sometimes just be mean stupid. So if it doesn't correct itself, you may have to separate them. Anthony says, how many electric blue acaras would you keep in a 75 gallon with a red spotted severum? You could do a half a dozen in a 75 gallon. The trick is then just make sure that they're all getting along. So you got to be really careful. Just make sure that, especially if that red spotted severum has been there for a while and it's starting to grow, it probably considers that 75 gallon to be its territory. And once you add other cichlids, there could be some initial aggression. And sometimes that resolves itself, sometimes it doesn't. So just have a backup plan. Anytime you're mixing cichlids, you want to make sure that if it doesn't work, you have a place for the fish to go. But half a dozen, I've kept big groups of electric blue acara, and they were pretty chill. Even when they were breeding, when I did the electric blue acara breeding care and breeding video, I had a breeding pair in a 40 breeder with, they weren't full size yet, but I had a breeding pair, and I probably had at least 7 or 8 additional electric blue acara, and the breeding pair really didn't even chase the other inhabitants all that much. They kind of kept them away, but it wasn't anything aggressive. They all eventually moved into 125, but they always got along. They were really great. And I still have 3 of them. They're old now, but I still have 3 of them in that 125 with some Viejas and Spilum. Amazingly, they've always gotten along. Yes, it's true. TD Tropicals, hello fishy fam, lots of love from Australia. Well, welcome.
Good day, mate.
Glad you're here.
Do you like
nice
that?
To see you. That was okay. It was all right. I'll give it a solid 5 out of 10.
Thank you. That's much higher than I would have given it.
All right. Oh, this chat just skipped all over me. Vincent says, angelfish and platies together, thoughts? Depends on the size of the tank. It's not something maybe I would be super excited about in like a 29 gallon, just because I think the angelfish would eventually get too large. But if you're going 55 gallon or greater, they're probably just going to ignore one another. Platies are a little crazy. They're a little active. Angelfish tend to be more chilled out, especially as they get older, but it would probably work. Silver Creek says, y'all missing fingers. I'm horrible at typing. If you can't forgive me, you a fingerist or something like that. An anti-fingerite. Yep. Wasn't that Seinfeld? Seinfeld was an anti-dentite?
Yes.
Yep. That was a good episode. JK, do you have any fish tattoos? Nope. All the tattoos I got were in my younger silly years, and although I had some I got some when we met, so I was still in my younger silly years, I suppose.
Yes,
Marley,
he was.
oldest fish you have ever had? Well, right now, that would probably be our Raphael cat. So our stropped Raphael cat was, it was the first fish. It's crazy. It was in the group of fish when we set up our 4-foot 150, which was the second tank, I believe, that we set up when we got the basement up and running again. We had the 75, then we set up the 150. We went to PetSmart, got some fish, and that striped Raphael was one of the fish that we got, and that was back in 2008. So that fish is 14. Interesting side note that there have been people who have had these Raphael cats for 30, 35 years. I've even heard somebody said they had it for 40 years. So I'm hoping that fish will live a very long time. But right now, that's the oldest one that we have, 14 years. I think that's the oldest fish I've ever had at 14 years old. So, yeah, that's the one. They live a long time if you keep them happy. Whips World, phone cameras and star picture taking are not good bedfellows. Yeah, it's going to keep you up. Matthew does stuff. Our Aquarium tank's good. Just got a 55 Aquarium from Pet Supplies Plus for $75. My old 55 was leaking. Listen, I am not a fish tank snob. People ask all the time, where do you get your fish tanks? Like, I've got some really awesome high-end source. I don't. All of the standard tanks that we've gotten from 5.5 gallons up through the 150 all came from the Petco or PetSmarts. The only tank that I have of standard sizes that didn't is my uncle gave me the brand is All Glass, the 75 gallon that has our albino Hecali. He had that tank in the 80s, gave it to me in the 90s. It's basically been running since the 80s. I never even resealed the thing. I've mentioned this a few weeks ago. That's it is what it is. It's basically been up and running now for close to 40 years. That's insane. It's got the ugly, well, it's not ugly. I actually don't mind it, but it's got the outdated, let's say, wood trim around the top and the bottom. But everything else, dollar per gallon sales, and yes, the glass is thinner. And now here's the one thing I will say. What you should do when you're buying a fish tank at a pet store is walk around that tank, feel the edges. Make sure the glass is relatively square. You'll be surprised if you start walking around and like going to the Petcos and PetSmarts and looking at some of these tanks that are dollar per gallon, and you're feeling the edges, and all of a sudden on this side the glass is sticking out like a 1/16, eighth of an inch, and over here it's like it's not even at the edge. You're like, that's the tank that is guaranteed to leak at some point in the next year. Stay away from that one. So feel the edges of all the seams of the tank. Make sure the glass is lined up properly. But I've been doing that. I've only had one tank ever leak from that. And it was a PetSmart 75 gallon. It leaked a little bit. It was like drip, drip, drip. It wasn't like a bursting thing. And I took it back. They replaced it. And there was no issues there. So, yep. All right. Scrolling around here. Scrolling around.
I think mine's stuck.
Your thing is stuck. Cameron says, "What is albino heckle eye?" It's the name of the fish is Acthrictes heckelei, and they have the standard, which is a really, really beautiful fish, and then they have this albino version that it's been popularized maybe in the last 6 to 8 years. I don't remember exactly. I remember the first time I saw them, we were up in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee. We were at the fish factory and they had one. I was like, wow, that's cool. But this was a number of years ago. But that might have been the first time I saw it. And then they started popping up slowly, and they're really cool fish. Mine have not bred. Some of the people in our club have kept them and have gotten them to produce eggs and even fry, but they can't keep the fry alive. From what I understand, it's somewhat unusual, at least it was, to get females. So a lot of the ones that you see are actually males. And I think that's actually my issue right now in the 75. All of those fish are males. I don't think I have any females, but they're really pretty. They're one of my favorite fish. They look amazing.
Why do they call them eye biters?
Because they literally do that. So the Malawi eye biters in nature will literally come along the side of a fish and bite their eyes out. It's kind of nasty.
Why?
That's just what they do. I don't know why. Ask them why. They taste. Oh, I just dropped a screw. I picked it up with my foot. So while I was talking, I was like, what is this thing? It's a screw, which I picked up with my feet, and then I dropped it on the bottom part.
Thanks for the info.
Yeah. So that's what you heard. Too much information, I'm sure. Hold on. I saw. Yeah, so the eye biters, be careful with those if you're going to put them in an aquarium, because they can do the same thing in real life, too.
For obvious reasons.
Greg D, would you add a 75 gallon with only 4 discus in it? Probably not long term, because a discus full grown. I don't know how many people have seen full grown discus. It's a relatively, at least around here, a rare thing. I mean, you go to the pet stores and everything, you see them, they're relatively small. You see some displays like, oh, those are pretty big, like the size of a saucer. Full grown discus are a sight to behold, and they would look very cramped long term. And this will take a long time, but they might look a little cramped in a 75 gallon. So I would probably opt for a taller tank. We've got the 4-foot 150, that's 30 inches tall. I like that for a discus. Maybe your 6-foot tanks, your 150s, your 180s, and larger, I think would be nice. What you got? You got something? You want to say something? Bob, though, what's up? 2 of my 4 tanks go down to 0 kH pretty much in about 2 weeks after doing a water change. How do I increase kH without increasing the pH? You probably, sorry, I didn't mean to bump the mic. You probably won't be able to do that all that well, increasing the kH without increasing the pH. However, I found it wasn't a screw. I picked it up, and it was a little tiny piece of gravel. At least I think it's gravel. Oh wait, it's poo-poo. I'm just kidding. It's a shiny piece of gravel. It's a little pebble.
Actually, I wouldn't say it's gravel. No.
It's a pebble.
This is a small rock, and this is one of my fancy rocks, too.
Okay.
I'll have you know.
So it's a small fancy rock. Maybe that can be part of the next giveaway, right?
It's actually
Next
a very
month,
beautiful small rock.
You're going to get, whoever gets the stuff, if we remember, you get the small, tiny little rock. But anyway, to continue answering your question, I'm sorry I picked up the little tiny pebble. Yeah, you're probably not going to increase KH appreciably without doing something to your pH. Now, if you're just going KH like, oh, it went from 0 and now it's at a 3 or 4, is that going to do much to your pH? Probably not. But if you start getting it up into the 7, 8, 9, 10, your pH will probably buffer a little bit higher. To answer your question about the KH, I would probably go again with the African cichlid mix in a filter bag if you don't want it as a substrate, or aragonite, and see how that works. Again, I would not do that in a tank with fish at first. I would do that in a tote and see how that works with the water.
Noah wants to know if it's fancy glittered rocks. Well, I've got a problem. I think that's what you call a rock hound. I am a rock hound. I love all rocks.
Yeah, but glitter is not rock.
It can be. Well, if you're talking, you could be talking like, minerals.
Something.
You know what I'm talking, like hematite.
Oh, okay. So sparkly rocks. I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I have some in a little baggie right back there, waiting for a special project that's sparkly. So heck yeah, I got some sparkles.
Okay. Well, we'll be looking forward to that one.
Greg.
Water change question: with waste producing fish, is it okay to wait for 20 to 40 ppm nitrates regardless of the fecal matter? 40-gallon tank with some anubias, no ammonia, no nitrite. Okay, so no ammonia, no nitrite. That's great. The 20 to 40 ppm nitrates. So, yeah, I mean, you're kind of in that range where it's not horrible. I think once you start getting above 30, it's like, all right, it's probably time to do a water change. So, would I wait? No, I'd probably want to get that nitrate down right after a water change, probably somewhere around 10, and then know that it's going to probably creep back up to 20 before the next water change. So I'm in a range of 10 to 20, maybe 15 to 25 at the most. The fish waste thing, I don't like to look at it, and it's just the more that's there, the higher the likelihood that some kind of microbe is going to be growing and proliferating and potentially causing disease at some point. So definitely when there's visible fecal matter, I like to get that out of the tank. So, yeah.
All right.
Well, says, I love the fact that Joanna has fancy rocks. They are the bedazzled. Are they? Did you just say that? See, at least I know. I know
but you can read it again because it's talking about stuff that sparkles, bedazzles,
whatever,
sparkle-tastic, and all that. I'm getting some questions like what it looks like. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to Instagram a picture of this little sucker because I'm going to have to get really close. I could show it here, but I have to show it like way back here because you already have it focused like over here. So I can't put it up close for you guys to see, but I'm going to Instagram. I'm going to put them in a nice little setting. I'm going to share this picture of this really fine rock.
That's pretty cool.
Look forward to it tomorrow.
Yep.
Don't you do anything with that rock then.
I'm going to eat it.
No.
Just for fun. Yeah. Mary says, what is the best way to raise pH with fish in the tank slowly? If you need to, if they're healthy, don't mess with it. Consistent pH is going to be better for your fish if they are healthy. They're eating, they're swimming, they're doing all the things, they're showing great color. If, again, and I've mentioned this a few times, I would not try to raise pH with fish in the tank until I knew whatever I'm using to increase the pH is going to work and how much of a change I'm going to get. That's why I would do everything in a tote with no fish in the tote. Maybe an air stone or a hang-on-back filter I'm not using, and then use something like aragonite. Use something, if you really want to go the route of using like the Fritz, African cichlid buffering salts, but I am not doing that at first with fish in a tank. I am doing that with no fish in a tote, and then even then I'm probably doing half doses in the tank to start with, slowly over time, to see what's going on when I do have the fish in there. Lucas says, I'm too old for Instagram.
Oh.
I don't know about that. It's funny how social media works. You look at Facebook, and I would say the demos, that's probably the oldest social media out there, or one of the oldest, and you look at the demographic, which is probably a little bit older, but I would say at this point, Instagram is probably, at least demographically, on the older, it's getting to be the older side, because Instagram was really like a millennial thing when that really became popular. They made it popular, and now you move in things like TikTok and Snapchat, which is definitely a younger generation. And it's I wonder if that's just going to travel with those generations, and something new will come in behind it. I've always kind of been partially YouTube, because I think it transcends generations, because depending on what you're using YouTube for, and I primarily use it to learn. Everybody wants to learn things.
Sure, but Instagram is great because pictures, and whoever loves pictures, whoever was a former or current scrapbooker, I've always loved photo and photography. 4 years of high school photography right here. That's right. So I always enjoyed it for that. And the big hubbub here with Instagram lately, right?
No.
The reels thing. They're having people do reels, but people are getting really sick of it. Like, why are you trying to make us do reels? So they just do a reel with a single picture and say, there you go, there's your reel. But I did want to share this because I do have aquascaping supplies pretty much on any surface in the house.
That is true.
This is a beautiful rock. If you guys would like to see a beautiful rock, this is a pink granite, pink dolomite. One of the two, I forget. But this is a beautiful rock.
And it sparkles.
Yeah, and I'm always picking it up, trying to put it in somewhere. So you may see it in some sort of, who knows what kind of escape, but it's a stunner. There you go.
Well, thanks for sharing.
Welcome.
And that was a little show and tell. Adam says, hey, Jason, I have a multi-colony for 5+ years going strong. They usually stop producing fry once there's 100 or so in the tank. Once I thin the numbers out, they spawn again. Totally normal. That's not just multis. That's a lot of different fish. They reach this critical threshold. Well, they will stop. At least that's pretty much every fish I've had. Even guppies. That's at some point, their critical threshold is much, much larger than a lot of other fish. But fish will stop once they start feeling crowded. That's happened to me with bristlenose plecos, with malties, Cyprichromis leptosoma, which is another lake tang you can fish, the caudal punks I've bred, every shell dweller I've ever bred. Most cichlids, it's like once they get a little too crowded, they're like, you know what, there's just not enough space here to make any more babies. They're too busy either fighting for food, they don't have enough territory, they're trying to, the males are trying to fend off all these other males, and so they don't ever have an opportunity to really, hang out and breed. It's a very normal thing. Yeah, and then once you kind of thin out the herd a little bit, they're like, oh, well, we've got some space again. We've got an area to call our own. I'm a male that doesn't have to fend off 50, males that are all within 12 inches of my territory. Yeah. Soda Creek, did she just say dolomite? She said dolomite.
Yeah, but I think it might be
Cheryl
granite.
Says, I like Instagram for less drama. I have Facebook, but can't handle it.
It's too bad.
I definitely feel what you're saying. People invite me to all these Facebook groups, fish related, not fish related, and I generally don't do it because, man, sometimes Facebook can really bring out the worst in humanity sometimes. And it's not Facebook's fault. It's obviously humanity that just kind of shows some of their maybe less desirable traits, and it's a little bit easier to do maybe when you're not talking to somebody. I think a lot of people say and do things behind a keyboard that they would never do if they were face to face and actually were talking with somebody. So yeah, I don't do a lot of Facebook stuff because of that. It's just too negative, and there's too much negativity. So
I got a rock.
Wait, what?
I got a rock.
Okay. What are you talking about?
So embarrassing.
Are you talking
Where's
about
it
the
from?
song Twisted Sister?
Oh my.
I Want a Rock.
I wouldn't say a movie. It's from a show.
I Got a Rock?
I got a rock. Oh my gosh.
Hold on. Because that actually...
Charlie Brown.
Oh, well, that's... Yeah, I've only
Great
seen
Pumpkin, Charlie
Melanie
Brown.
says MySpace. That was before my ability to want to even be in the social media thing. Yep.
That was like one of the forerunners, right?
I think it's still a thing though, right? They use it for music now, from what I understand.
Really?
Yeah. Echo, I hate Facebook. Well, you know what? You're definitely not alone in that feeling. Lucas, Facebook is better than Twitter. I don't even have a Twitter account.
Yeah,
Everything I've ever seen, it just seems like somebody says something, somebody else responds, and it just seems like inevitably, if you're on Twitter and you're active actively using Twitter, you are guaranteed to have to apologize for something you've said at some point. So I don't ever want to be that person. I don't ever want to get on a social media thing and be like, I really want to apologize for my misspoken words if they were hurtful to anyone, and to give that half fake apology that people give. So I am not doing Twitter ever. You are never going to see me spouting off random thought fragments on Twitter, because
they probably wouldn't even make any sense.
They probably wouldn't. I barely make any sense when I'm have an opportunity to speak here, and you want me on Twitter with 150 letters or words or something?
Mm-hmm.
Can't do it, man. All right, everybody. We'll do one or two more questions, and then we're going to call it an evening. Cameron, have you guys ever thought about doing a tour of conventions across the country for aquatic hobbyists? If you're talking about just going to them, we do quite a few. We do all the Aquashellas. We're going to be doing the OCA in Cleveland later this year. Obviously, we do all the GCCAs, Green Waters in the area. It just gets to a point where we run out of time and run out of weekends because we have other things going on too. But definitely like them. I like the idea. Maybe next year we'll be able to do a few more. I wish someday Aquashella would do some stuff on the West Coast, and maybe something in the upper Northeast would be nice, because we've got Orlando, we've got Dallas, we've got Chicago, so we've got those areas covered. But to be able to get out onto the West Coast would be especially cool. So if they added more, sure. I would certainly be open to doing.
Go back
more
to
of those.
Joyzy. That was fun.
Yeah, somewhere. Although, like I said, I would even like to do like maybe Boston or something. Like, you've never been to Boston. That's a pretty nice area. Jersey's cool. New York, yeah, somewhere up there.
So Lucas says, you like cichlids?
I just saw that.
So you're saying you hate guppies? Sign Twitter.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it would probably roll.
That sounds like Facebook too, of what I hear. Like,
no,
you just can't say anything
not
right.
Quite like that, but
really,
yeah.
I don't hear any good things about them.
It's pretty crazy, man. All right, let's see. Echo says, I missed the theme songs on MySpace and the wallpapers.
Oh.
I don't even know, because I never did it.
Wow. Now I'm curious.
Well,
what were the theme songs and wallpapers?
Turnip says, I have 1 angel, 1 bumblebee platy, 6 cardinals, 6 cooloches, 5 pandacories, 5 odos, and 55 gallon. Would you consider that overcrowded? Nope. No, I wouldn't. I think it's good. I think you did a pretty good job. You got the angel, all right? So you got a bumblebee platy, whatever, 6 cardinals, fine. 6 coolies for the bottom with the 5 pandas, tons. They've got 4 foot of space, that's fine. 5 odos, no, that's not. I wouldn't consider that overcrowded at all. I think that's a nice stocking level. I'm sure everybody's probably pretty happy with that. So I think you're good. So, all right, everybody, I think it is time to call it an evening, call it a day, and let everybody go night-nights. So thank you. Once again, thank you for being here. When we meet again next Wednesday, like I said at the beginning, we're going to be officially in fish keeping season. It's going to be super exciting. I don't know what that means. I think, well, and by the way, don't do it in the chat because we're closing this out, but in the comments section after the video goes live, I would love to hear from you. For the live streams, would you like us to cover topics for the first 15, 20 minutes? If you want more of that, let me know. And if you've got ideas for topics for live streams, in the comments section after the video posts, let me know, because I would be very curious. If you want me to cover more topics, we'll be happy to do that. So, all right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We will see you next week, same time, same place. Appreciate everybody, all the super chats and stickers and all the moderators. Appreciate you being here. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.